The manifest came through on my board at 3:14 station time, tagged routine cargo receipt, origin listed as way station Sarath 4, recipient the Terran Compact Diplomatic Logistics Bureau, contents declared as equipment, miscellaneous non-hazardous, 14 crates, each one sealed with a standard combine shipping lock and an itemized weight. I read the weights twice because I didn't understand them at first. Then I did. A human body weighs approximately 60 to 90 kilograms, depending on the individual. The weights on the manifest came out right, once I divided by 14. I flagged it upward at 3:17. By 3:40, Commander Rel Aviath was standing behind me with both hands on the back of my chair and not saying anything for a long time. I could hear her breathing. That was the only sound on the CIC that mattered. The Combine had sent us 14 boxes. Inside each box was a member of the Terran Compact's diplomatic mission to Sarath 4. The envoy, her 2 senior aides, the cultural attaché, the 3 junior staff, the 4-person security detail, and the 3 technical specialists assigned to the pre-accord infrastructure talks. They had been in the Combine's care for 11 days. The Combine's official account, transmitted to the Compact Trade Bureau 6 days prior, a transmission I pulled from the archive in the 20 minutes after Aviath left the CIC, classified the deaths as administrative detainment, expired. Natural causes due to inadequate physiological data on the part of the Terran delegation. Regrettable. The Combine extended formal condolences and suggested that future diplomatic missions provide comprehensive biological documentation in advance to prevent similar misunderstandings. They were very thorough with the paperwork. I sat with that for the rest of the night watch. Not because I was paralyzed, I wasn't. I had work. Every signal coming out of Sarath space needed logging, time-stamped, cross-reference to the Compact's treaty archive. That was my job. So I did it while the ship around me woke up in stages and the word moved through the corridors in that quiet particular way that means something has happened that cannot be undone. By 600, Admiral Davenport had convened a flag conference I was not part of but whose conclusions I felt before they were formalized. The way you feel a pressure change before a storm arrives. At 8:47 the designation was issued, Iron Ledger. 340 warships drawn from 6 fleet stations, Assembly Point Compact Nearspace Corridor 7. Readiness window, 22 hours. That number was not chosen carelessly. 22 hours was the exact interval the Combine had held the mission's survivors. There were none, it turned out, but we had not known that at the time, before transmitting the condolences memo and moving on to other business. The Combine had set a clock, we honored it. I watched the Iron Ledger assemble on the deep range plot for most of the next 12 hours. There is a particular quality to watching 340 ships find formation, not chaos, not a mob of vessels rushing to a common point, but the kind of ordered, practiced geometry that only comes from organizations that have done this before and intend to do it again. Squadrons arriving from Carveth Station angled into their assigned sectors and cut thrust exactly at the approach boundary, not a kilometer over. The heavy cruiser elements from Dellen Reach came in 2 parallel columns, 4 ships wide, with the precision of something that had been planned well in advance of any crates arriving on anyone's manifest, which it had. Humanity has contingency plans for most things. This was not the first time an envoy had come home wrong. By hour 17, the Combine began transmitting. The first signal was addressed to Compact Traffic Control, citing Combine regulatory authority over approach vectors within its outer sphere of recognized territorial influence, and requesting we redirect the Iron Ledger accordingly. I logged it. Timestamped 1743 ship time. Filed under the standard diplomatic traffic category with the Combine's routing header. Sent the receipt confirmation they were entitled to. Did nothing else. The second transmission at hour 19 was addressed to the Compact Trade Bureau at Reach Station and invoked Article 7 of the Mutual Commerce Accord, which required a 60-day consultation period before any action materially affecting Combine economic infrastructure could be initiated. The Trade Bureau forwarded it to Admiral Corps' office. Corps forwarded it to me. I logged it, timestamped it, added it to the file, and sent the receipt. Article 7 had a provision that it could not be invoked by a party found to be in violation of the Accord's foundational dignity clauses. I noted that in the margin. No one had asked me to. At hour 19 and 40 minutes, a Combine commercial relay forwarded what it framed as a personal communication from Envoy General Sarath Vainik to any compact flag officer willing to receive it. It contained a great deal of language about the long history of Combine compact cooperation, about the genuine complexity of interspecies physiological standards, about the grief the Combine felt at the outcome. It was well written. I logged it, timestamped it, filed it under the same folder as the rest, and sent the receipt. I did not forward it to Admiral Corps. There was nothing in it she did not already know, and her time was occupied with things that mattered. Hour 20 brought a signal on the Velanthe Neutral Channel, a third-party emergency arbitration flag, technically requiring both parties to cease hostile movement pending a 72-hour mediation window. The Velanthe Accord on Neutral Arbitration was a good piece of interstellar law. I had read it twice in my career. I logged the signal, timestamped it, sent the receipt, and pulled the Accord's text so I could note in the margin that it did not apply to situations involving the death of diplomatic mission personnel in the custody of the party requesting arbitration. The Combine had written that exception into the Accord themselves, 17 years prior, after a different incident with a different species. They had very good lawyers. At hour 21, the transmission changed in character. It was addressed directly to the Iron Ledger and carried the authentication signature of the Combine's Defense Secretariat. It requested a commanding officer response, offered a joint investigative commission, offered reparations talks, offered a formal review of the administrative detainment classification, and expressed the Combine's sincere hope that the situation could be resolved through dialogue consistent with the norms of civilized interstellar conduct. I logged it, timestamped it, filed it, sent the receipt. Then I opened a channel to Admiral Corps' CIC station. Because that signal was the one she had told me to flag for her directly, I watched her read it on her own board. She read it twice. I could see her face on the secondary monitor. She had the same expression she had carried for 22 hours, which was not rage and not grief, but something underneath both of those, something that had gone through the fire and come out the other side as something harder and quieter and completely decided. She did not respond to the Combine. At hour 22, 0 minutes and 14 seconds, the Iron Ledger crossed the designated approach threshold at Sarath Nearspace. All 340 vessels in formation, at the velocity and bearing filed with compact navigation 6 hours prior. Nothing improvised, nothing rushed. The geometry was as clean on the final plot as it had been in the planning brief. The Combine's defense installations began active tracking at the threshold crossing. I logged the ping timestamp. Their orbital grid came to readiness 40 seconds later. I logged that too. They transmitted one final signal, unaddressed, on open broadcast frequency, announcing that any hostile action against Combine sovereign territory and assets would be met with full defensive response under the provisions of Combine territorial law. I logged it, sent the receipt. Then I opened a channel to broadcast on the same open frequency, because the Admiral had asked me to send one transmission in return, and she had told me exactly what to say. I said 14. That was the entirety of the message. No supplementary text. No identification header beyond the Iron Ledger's standard fleet call sign. Just the number, spoken clearly, logged to my board at 22 hours, 1 minute, and 9 seconds from the moment the cargo manifest had come through on my screen. What followed I will not detail here, not because it is classified, it is not, but because the count is in the record and the record is complete. The iron ledger was methodical. It was organized at scale. It was not in a hurry because it did not need to be. 340 ships operating in disciplined concert do not require haste. They require only patience, and the patience had been established the moment Admiral Core had looked at the manifest weights and not said anything for a long time. The iron ledger took 11 hours and 43 minutes to complete its business at Sarath. Not 11 days, not the 72 hours the Valanthe arbitration window would have required. 11 hours and 43 minutes for the full accounting. I logged the completion timestamp, filed it with the rest. Then I opened the Combine's case file. All their transmissions, their Article 7 invocation, their arbitration flag, their investigative commission offer, their reparations proposal, their final broadcast on the open frequency, and I marked the file status at the top of the first page. 14 entries, all receipts sent, matter resolved. I closed the file,